All right, we're going to be beginning a little soon tonight, mostly because I want to make sure that I'm not going to be running into any audio issues like I have these nights before. I'd like to just make sure that you guys can hear me all right. I'm going to wait until I hear a response from the chat, and then we'll get started. Also, I'm out of music to play, so everyone can hear me okay, I hope. I need to have some better way of testing this out. What I really need is to employ someone to be a moderator. Fantastic. All right, it looks like I'm getting through to the audience very well. So let's just go ahead and begin. Yang Gang, thank you for joining Securing the Bag with Seth Underwood. I am your host, Seth Underwood, and as always, we have so much to talk about and very little time to do so because, as we all know, the technological singularity is at hand, and the machine elves wait for no one. But you know what's even closer than the technological singularity? It's the 2019 summer Democratic debates, you guessed right. And we are now 7 days away. That's right, 1 week. And believe me, where I'm from, it's said that quite a lot can happen in a week, including but not limited to the creation of land, water, stars, the sun, and the universe itself. So time will only tell what this next week has in store for us. And as for that fateful night, June the 27th, where Yang makes his breakout spotlight moment on national TV, what will happen that night? We don't know. Will Joe Biden, status quo Joe, fall asleep center stage or possibly combust in a spontaneous moment where he symbolizes the overall bonfire of his campaign and platform overall? Will Marianne Williamson initiate a seance to try and contact the spirits of the dead? Will Bernie Sanders announce to the audience that, congratulations, you are all now employed by the federal government and you need to show up 8 a.m. sharp to your local government administration jobs office? Who knows? But we're going to be talking about all of that and much more here on the Dividend Report. I'm hoping to have a special episode for that night. But as for some quick business that we have for tonight's show, I'd like to just go ahead and quickly thank my 2 patrons that I have secured in the past couple of weeks. Words cannot go through and describe how grateful I am for your support. Thank you for helping me help Andrew Yang get universal basic income into the spotlight and eventually enacted as a national policy. I really, really, really appreciate you helping me out. And if you have not yet already subscribed to the Dividend Report, please make sure that you have, because our current goal is 200 subscribers, and I will be giving away a free copy of Andrew Yang's book, The War on Normal People. It's a Audible form, and unfortunately, you cannot have already had an Audible account. I know that seems a little bit weird, a little bit cheap, but I am extremely poor, and this is the best way that I can go about rewarding my subscribers. So yeah, thank you all. I'm so enthusiastic about the support that you guys have given me. It means so much to me. Tonight's show might be a little bit shorter than normal. I gotta admit, I'm feeling a little under the weather. I'm not entirely sure. I want to make sure that I don't start to spiral into a dumpster fire, kind of like Joe Biden's campaign. So we're gonna get through some of the material that I have prepared today, but in case things just fall apart, that's the reason why. However, there will probably be an after show special tonight. I will be Twitch streaming with some close friends of mine on twitch.com. You can follow me there at the Dividend Report. I believe it is the Dividend Report at twitch.com. A fair disclaimer, this is going to be like a after show, like a Adult Swim version of the Dividend Report. The people who I play games with, they typically tend to like to drink when they play, and there's there's little filter at all. And so I don't really want to associate it with this channel. I'm not going to leave a link or anything, but if you'd like to continue along tonight, feel free to check me out on Twitch. So let me just see here. I don't think that there's really any other business to go into. We're going to be talking about quite a bit tonight, ranging from but not limited to, hold on, let me pull up my show notes because they've gotten away from me here. We've got some corrections very quickly that I'd like to go over. I've said some fake news recently, and I want to make sure to clear that up. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I was struggling to find the position that she held, that she'll be leaving, and we will dearly miss her. She was, of course, the White House press secretary, the position that I'm vying for, but it's going to be difficult for me to maintain that position if I don't even know what it's called. Also, Kyle Kashuv, not Khrushchev, which really the difference in pronunciation may not seem that important, but I think it actually is. That's the correct pronunciation of that individual's name, and it was Stoneman Douglas High School was the high school that he was from. I think that I also messed that up as well. Also, as I was going through and making sure about that, I noticed that he was born in 2001. Every now and then you see people like born after the year 2000, hell, even the year 2000, and you just kind of like scratch your head and go, man, these people are about to be 18 years old. They're going to be driving soon. And then in just a couple years after that, they're going to be drinking as well. And hopefully not a combination of those two things. But it's crazy. It's crazy. Ironically enough, though, the Zoomers might be the people who actually save us all. So if you're here and you are a Zoomer, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're joining us. Really quick, before we continue on, I think that's all the show corrections. I'm going to go ahead and just take a look at the chat, see what you guys are up to tonight. Alyssa, thank you for joining. Sean, thank you for joining. Boris, I appreciate you being here. It's so good to see you all. Sunshine Gasoline, thank you for the recent subscription to the channel. I really appreciate you tagging along here tonight. I cannot wait for the next week's debate either. It's so exciting, and I'm nervous at the same time, but I've got to admit, over the past couple nights, the nervous kind of portion of it is being eclipsed by the overall excitement. I don't see how this can go wrong. Knock on wood, which that is wood. So we're good. We're good to go. Quick fact, did you guys know why they say to knock on wood? Apparently in Germany, where a lot of the folklore existed of fairies, they believed that fairies would live in the trees and the forest and things of that nature. And, as the lumberjacks would go through and cut down the trees to make furniture, these fairies would be trapped within these chairs and things of that nature. And they still had some residual magic qualities left in them. And so if you're ever walking around your house and you happen to say something that you sure wish doesn't happen, you need to loudly rattle up the wooden furniture around you so that the fairies can't hear what you're saying, and then go through and use their magic to make that happen. Yeah, pretty fun fact. I love some folklore. It's really cool, and everyone says that sentence but has no idea where it comes from. So yeah, we like to learn here on the Dividend Report, but we also like to talk about Yang, current news, and futurology. And I think that we may start off with the futurology angle tonight. We kind of talked a little bit about salination on the last night's episode, and we have a little bit more news to talk about concerning that. It turns out that there is a pretty large state involving, I think, a population of 4.5 million people in India, which are currently out of water. Seems to be a very severe humanitarian crisis happening right now, and whether or not it's related to climate change, well, at this point, I think we can say that everything's related to climate change. It's very serious, and it needs to be dealt with in a significant manner. We need to be using the technologies and the futurism that I am talking about every night. We have to have some sort of movement behind this type of tech to make sure that we're able to take care of the problems of the future, and we can do it if we come together under a united cause. And it sucks that so much of our current politics is so divided, and it's I kind of wish that there may be someone who has the potential to reach across aisles and get things done. I wonder who might be able to do that. Who, I ask you. But regardless, completely unrelated to that question, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Andrew Yang and see how he's doing in the polls, because it looks like he's already making progress. And yesterday I spoke about how he was tied with Cory Booker at 2% in some national polls that he needed to qualify at 2% for the fall debates. Well, it looks like he's passed up Cory Booker to hit 3% in a poll in the great state of Florida. That's right. Later tonight on the news, Florida man shocks the national audience by suddenly seeing the light and understanding that Andrew Yang is a great candidate. I think if Florida goes forward for Yang, we can forgive them for everything else. So I hope to see a little bit more of that. Let me see here. So Yang continues to make waves we might be doing a quick analysis of some criticism that was made from him on the Majority Report. I've got the video brought up here, but I don't want to get too negative tonight. It just doesn't feel like the kind of night to do it. And I know if I watch this, if I publicly play the audio of the horrendous gargoylean nature, the dark age type of discussion that happened on this quote-unquote progressive, pseudo-progressive talk show, which I know that I'm going to get a little too heated, and I don't want to subject y'all to that, but we might open that up tonight and see exactly what kind of discussion's going on there. But in some good news, it looks like the gag order on the Stephen Colbert Show announcement has been lifted. For some reason or another, which I never quite understood, we were told to try and keep this on the down low, that Andrew Yang was going to be a part of the Late Show, and I'm not sure exactly why the reasoning was for this. We're actually going to talk about what it means to be Yang Gang, because I'm wondering if this is because of the quote-unquote alt-right support that Andrew Yang has had over the past couple of projected to have had over the past couple of months. For one reason or another, we should not have talked about the fact that he may be appearing on Stephen Colbert's. This is the thing, right? If you're in media, any kind of publicity is good publicity, right? And what type of flack is the Colbert Report going to get by being associated with Andrew Yang, a candidate who was the first to announce his run for presidency in 2017, and one of the first 6 to make the qualifying criteria to meet the debates in the summer 7 days away from now, right? It doesn't make sense that Colbert's show would, for any reason, neglect to have him on. It just doesn't quite make sense to me. But, in news that revolves around this aspect, there's a post on Reddit, I think yesterday, that just happened. I've got it pulled up right here. And it was someone mentioning that we wanted to make sure that we didn't get too pushy. There was a Twitter user by the name of Southwest Cray who posted, "I think Andrew Yang is an interesting guy." And I actually went along and posted a reply to her and said, anyone who thinks that Andrew Yang is interesting is in fact an interesting person. And it looks like all of the flooding of similar types of comments from me really made this person uncomfortable. She came through and made a reply to this tweet to say, "I truly, from the bottom of my heart, regret this tweet. The Yang Gang is following with the same tone as the Bernie Bros. I do not trust fangirl support of candidates. We are voting for a president, not American Idol." So I like what Yang has to say, but his fans are turning me off. I have a little bit of a problem with this because the president who's in the Oval Office right now, sure, who was 2 million votes short of the popular vote, was elected with a type of energy, with a type of memeology that, lifts people in today's age, in the internet age, up. And, maybe I'm approaching this this rebuttal with a little bit of bias because the name of my show is Securing the Bag, and I do carry a little bit of that energy with me, but we can't just turn away from what is kind of the status quo of the internet, what is the power of the internet. And I've said before that, there was a little bit of like pink hat movement type of chaos candidate momentum coming from the darker corners of the internet, which doesn't mean white supremacist support, but like that type of meme support, I think may be important to some degree, and I don't want to see it completely go away, but it does seem like there's no more of that type of real energy. There's still a little bit of GIFs here and there. That's right, I say GIFs, and if you tell me to say GIFs, we're gonna have a problem. You can go ahead and just leave this stream right now. I don't care. It's GIFs. It's GIFs. It's weird. It's a very thin line to walk across, and I think, man, it shows energy. It shows energy. Yeah, we are fangirling over Yang because it's like a candidate who fills you up with that kind of hope is going to make you constantly talk about him. And I've been doing this since February. I've been lit up, and I've been waking up every morning with Yang on my mind and in my heart, and I just want to spread the abundance like I know that we can. So It's a little strange, and while I do say that, the question does remain, what is the best kind of momentum to go forward with? What's the best kind of image to show ourselves as? And overall, I'm linking this back to the Colbert Report because I can't help but wonder if that has anything to do with this. Have any other candidates who have vied for a position on the Late Show had to deal with a image, public relations type of problem like this? I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to find out though, for sure. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the comments. I support Yang the way I think is best. I just try to spread his name and not convince anyone of anything. I trust the message. And that's the best way to do it. And every now and then, I'm going to admit I fail. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I have some moments where I go through and I can get involved in some pretty heated discussions, and you hear the same rebuttal to, the same tired response to a universal basic income over time, and like at a certain point you'll feel like, oh well, this has already been established, but that's just a psychological flaw that we humans will have. Not everyone has the same information. You got to make sure that you're coming with an open mind, even though you're going to come across some idiotic people on the webs. If we each told 5 people about Seth, that might help him reach more people. Hey, I would really appreciate if you go through and do that, but be sure you're doing it only if you appreciate the content that I'm putting out. I want to make sure that I'm able to consistently and reliably put out good material that you guys are interested in. I actually made a video about Seth telling me people to go check him out. Oh, hey, thank you so much. I'll need to go and check that out. I appreciate you doing that. Amazing. I tweet them out before streams. I don't have a huge amount of followers, but you never know. Spider-Man, you have it in you. You've got this social media type of like knack that you're able to do things very well. So I can see you going a lot farther than where you are right now. RG maximalism. I may not know. I may be coming into a conversation halfway through. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next item on the list today, which is going to be, we've covered public image relations with Yang. Where are my show notes? Here we go. So where are the pink hats? Yang, we've got a 3%. Someone on Reddit's pointing out that mentions of Yang have raised to 42 times in the last week. This is up 5 times the week before. So just on cable news, I believe these are the numbers that are coming through. And apparently this is coming through from 538.com, which, Nate Silver, the not economist, but he's a polling specialist. What would you call Nate Silver? I'm going to continue to embarrass myself on these streams by not knowing basic terminology, but Nate Silver, we all know who Nate Silver is. There's not a lot of surprise here that this is coming through, because I'm like 75% sure that Nate Silver is secretly Yang Gang, because I think he knows he's going to need some financial security if he fudges up the number like he did in 2016. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No shade on Nate Silver. And by the way, no shade on Marianne Williamson. I said some things about her earlier in the stream. I love what she's doing. I love what she has to say. But yeah, anyways. We also got a name check on Howard Stern's show, and Scott Santens is kind of leading the charge on Twitter right now, asking the question: do we want Andrew Yang on my brain just short-circuited on Howard Stern's show. So be sure that you go over to Scott Santen's Twitter. Someone on Reddit was mentioning that he was emailing the Andy Stern. Howard Stern, what is my issue right now? Like I said, it's been a little bit of a weird day, so you'll just have to stick with me on Howard Stern's show. I don't know if emailing is the best way to do it, but definitely go check out Scott Santen's Twitter and follow him if you have not already. It would be great if we could get him on a Howard Stern show. That would, again, really help out the momentum that we already have going into the debates. And we've got 10 days to make $3.5 million in donations. I've set up $1 per month. That's the most that I can do, and even that's a little bit more than I can afford. But if you haven't already, make sure that you do go through and donate. It will really make this move forward. I mean, you're donating for $1,000 for the rest of your life. It really just, it makes a lot of logical sense to do that. So I also made a tweet today, and I'm going to go ahead and stand by this tweet. I think that maybe one of the best ways. Okay, I don't know. I'm gonna reword that. I made the tweet that everything's going to change the moment that Kanye West learns about Andrew Yang, and I believe that for real. I was just seeing today this video of him sitting next to Trump, and he put on the MAGA hat, and he was like, "When I put this hat on," he pulls a Kanye. Uh, um, Kanye, I think you need to put on a math hat and then see what that feels like. I would really love to see Kanye become aware of Andrew Yang and see exactly how he reacts to that. We need to make some sort of movement to get Kanye West under the wings of the crystalline technomoth into the wings of abundance, because the poor guy, I know that he deals with quite a bit of just he needs a little more green in his life, a little more green light. He might be surrounded by a little too much blue light. As I talked about yesterday, green light is scientifically proven to improve your mental health. So surround yourself in green. Go outside 10 minutes a day. After you listen to this report, go outside for about 10 minutes. Just look at some trees and think of something you're grateful at. And I say that to you too, Kanye, in case you're here with me in the Yang Gang, which I wouldn't be surprised if he was. So, moving on from Kanye West, we're going to talk a little bit here also about something important. I'm sure my show notes are so scattered. I'm so ADD. You should see what I'm looking at here. You really shouldn't. I was going forward. Okay, yes. So I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the Monsters, Inc. argument for universal basic income. And you've probably, if you're a big follower of a universal basic income, you've seen the video that's been shared around by I believe it's UBI Facts on Twitter. Visuals, no graphics. One of those. And it's kind of a childish way of getting people to understand the concept of a universal basic income, but it's really powerful too. And, you may want to find the right part in the conversation if you're trying to convince someone about a universal basic income, but there's a lot of power in this idea. And if you've seen Monsters, Inc., you know that it's about a society of monsters, and they power their entire society through the energy created by screams, the screams of children, to be exact. And all throughout their history, they've done it this way, and then at some point throughout the film, they find out that a child's laughter is 10 times as powerful of a resource as the screams that they had previously been using to power their entire society. So in many ways, we can think of a universal basic income in the very same framework. Right now, for the majority of people in the civilized and first world, poverty and the fear of homelessness, starvation, and death is used as the ways to extract labor and to exploit that manual labor from people. And if you think of the ways in which freedom works, freedom from another person, if you're just free in the natural world, resources are available. You just have to go out and get them yourself. But slavery, as a definition, is being constrained by another human who has the complete control over a resource that you need in order to survive. So if I put you in a room and I slowly start to take away oxygen from you, and I tell you to pull a lever and continue to pull the lever, and I will pay you in oxygen, I can be pretty sure that you're going to pull that lever. And in that way, we really haven't moved very significantly far away from slavery as human beings. So if we can think about what a universal basic income can do, the type of transition away from a scarcity mindset, and it's very elaborately and eloquently stated in this video, which I should really, if you haven't seen it already, you can find my link to this video that goes much further into this concept on my Twitter. But when you think of someone making you a sandwich, they're going to do a much better job making that sandwich if they take a pride in the way that they go about the culinary art. And you would much prefer having a service being, done a good being given to you from someone who takes extreme pride in the ways that they go about doing that. And you don't get as good a quality of services or good from people who are forced to make those things. And overall, what you can think of is the big thing to focus on here is that when in the movie they found out that laughter was 10 times more as powerful, that's the same type of concept. There's much more to gain by moving away from a scarcity mindset than by staying in the abundance mindset. And I actually had an exchange with someone on Twitter today where he said, there are a lot of jobs out there that people just don't want to do. And I had to just kind of take a moment to compose myself, because that's basically an admission that we use poverty to extract labor from the poorest of us to do the jobs that no one wants to do. Well, any libertarian economist would tell you that there's no price that is low enough for someone to exchange their labor for a good. If these jobs truly don't want to be done by anyone, then they need to be reflected in that nature by the price we're willing to pay for it. And this is why I talk a lot about the fact that our labor valuation is completely skewed. If we think about the fact that Ninja can make $10 million a year playing video games, and much of that from individual donations completely outside of the advertising model, then it's clear that in terms of what value, what tangible value Ninja as a person is giving society, versus someone doing a job that is gritty and hard and make sure that his community is actually sustaining itself. The valuation is all wrong. It's all skewed. It's all messed up. And someone said something about like how hardcore conservatives, they know the price of everything but the value of nothing. And it really does feel like that is an epidemic problem in our society. It's like, it sucks, right? I love using Ninja as an argument, and now increasingly Monsters Inc. seems to be an argument. And at the core, these two concepts are childish, right? They're types of ways that a child would view the world and say, hold on, this doesn't make sense. And that's kind of the point that I like to bring up. In many ways, we've been brainwashed as we've grown up to accept society as the way that it is. And when we bring up the fact that things are completely wrong, you're going to be turned around and shut down and said, oh, you're being naive. You're being naive about this. But there is a wisdom that can come from the mouth of babes. And so I'm not sure exactly where the best place might be to share the Monsters Inc. Angle to justify universal basic income, but I think that there is inherently some kind of power that can come from that analysis, that description, that English words. I'm blanking here, of course. My mind's just cut loose. That's a quote from Annihilation. Great movie, you should watch it. I think that I've just about kind of covered all of these notes. Like I said, tonight was probably going to be a lot shorter of a show. I'm going to take a look just through the comments to see what you guys are saying, because I want to keep it going a little bit more if I can. But for some reason or another, like today, I've been looking through the news all day long, and it's just been a really dry day. I'm not sure entirely why that's the case. I did say that I've got this analysis kind of prepared in a little bit of a ways from the Sam Cedar Majority Report discussion. And you know what? Just for prosperity's sake, words, English, I'm going to go through and do this. Hopefully I can center myself. I can align my chakras and make sure that I just don't go off the deep end as I listen to this and bring you guys down with me. But there's a little bit of discussion that I'd like to have with this, because these pseudo-progressives they're really getting under my skin. But before we get into that, I'm just going to take a look quickly through the comments here and see. Be careful with that Monsters Inc. thing. Q people have a conspiracy theory about that. Oh Lord, okay. Q, that's an issue. No, Q does not stand for queer, Alyssa. It stands for QAnon. And this is kind of the more conspiratorial dark corner side of the internet, where everything in anything is a actual Kafkaesque central authority, dark force controlling everything and everything under the sun. I personally kind of, you know, I combat that idea. Sure, I believe that there are forces at play overall that, don't like to let themselves be known, and they can guide in probably very effective ways public opinion and public policy. But I don't think that this force has any control over the coming singularity. They don't have any control over the rapid, expansive pace of technology. So I'm pretty optimistic in the way that things are going. The increasingly hard to understand reality that we live in is also going to be an increasingly hard to understand reality for any shadow government to participate in. So if I do somehow cease to exist by rapidly accelerating in a robo-taxi in the coming years, you'll know it's because I raised the flag on the shadow government, and please hold vigils in my name, because I'm now a public figure and that terrifies me. Spot on. We are slaves with financial chains instead of iron chains. Yeah, it is. That's the case, and it's a hard reality to discuss, because when you have to come to terms with the fact that the reality around you isn't quite what it seems, the psychological definition for what occurs at that moment is called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is basically the feeling that you get when what you are coming to understand doesn't match up with what you have been led to believe for many, many years. And there's actually an amount of physical pain. You can read this on a pain scale scientifically that is accompanies cognitive dissonance. So that's an issue that, like, you're not going to be able to very eloquently and effectively get across to people outside of some kind of glass shattering, illusion breaking experience that probably only a psychedelic substance could do. I support Seth because he is way more articulate than me. I disagree with that, maybe in like a verbal sense, but I've seen some of the tweets you've made, and just when it comes to text versus for like voices and things of that nature, you can be articulate in many different ways. He has a beautiful voice. Thank you. I'm flattered. I'm gonna stop. So please get Andrew in so my kids don't grow up chilling with Mad Max. Agreed. I mean, at this moment, I cannot imagine having children. But here, as I'm kind of getting older in my age, I know, and I'm not that old at all. You guys aren't going to figure out how old I am. I'm not going to say. Every now and then I get these crazy dreams where it's like, all throughout every one of my waking hours, I'll say, I don't want children. But then you get this dream where all of a sudden you've got this kid, and it's like, it's your duty to raise this child, to bestow your wisdom upon them. And you wake up and you go, holy shit. Like, I don't want kids, but hold on, what? But and then you're having to deal with the reality that's around you, the increasing climate change, the increasing absolute absurdity of inequality as it exists, and everything's of that nature. It's terrifying. And a universal basic income might completely flip what I believe right now, as terms of like what I want for the future, how I view the future. And the same goes for millions and millions of other people. What do you call a man with a rubber toe? I'm not... Roberto. Okay. I need a moderator. You have to be Gen X. I can spot my own kind. You called it. Okay, Gen X. Listen, you guys gave us Nirvana, so thank you. Podcast voice. Yes, I actually do have a podcast. It's called Building the Oasis. You can find it on Google Play and the Apple Store, or the Apple Podcast Store. I don't actually continue with content updates for that, but maybe sometime in the future. I am at heart a techno-futurist, so I may at some point go back to that. I'm not sure if punditing is my calling, but we'll have to see. Because right now I'm making some pretty important predictions, and I think the degree at which I embarrass myself is going to dictate just how far I'm able to go along with this. Your face says early 20. Kind of close, kind of. Seth, your voice is like a song. Thank you, thank you. You guys, stop. I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm blushing. All right, watching children develop can give you a lot of insight into the complete lack of human nature, no free will. Yeah, I had a discussion into determinism the other night with an individual, and we were talking about universal basic income and free will, because I brought up the study that shows that during times of financial insecurity versus times of actually being able to take care of your needs and not worrying about where your next paycheck's going to come from, you can see one standard deviation, 13-point difference in IQ from the same individual. We're not talking about anything else like that. The same individual taking cognitive tests in these two different realities, and he brought up, he said, you're basically arguing determinism, and I was like, I guess I am. I mean, I didn't expect this conversation to become so philosophical, but yes, and like that's the basic idea of this entire thing. You as an individual who is so consumed with the thought of how am I going to pay rent by next Friday, you're not going to have the same amount of mental bandwidth as someone who would be able to take care of themselves a year in advance and make plans 6 months in advance. So if anything, yes, we have no free will. This is all just a simulation. We're all pre-coded. No, I'm kidding. I don't believe that at all. I believe that this is a hybridized system between free will and a certain amount of determinism. You have to eat. You have to eat 3 times a day. And you just can't decide not to. You technically could, but you don't really have the free will to do so. I'm on your boat, Seth. Yeah, I don't want children, but who knows? I might change my mind. And this kind of goes a little bit forward. In many ways, if you were to ask me if I'm left of center, if I'm right of center, sometimes I go through and I'm completely in favor of gun reform. But then all it takes is for me to envision, like I don't have kids. I've never even been close to having kids. But if I can just envision the fact that I might be at a store with my family and I have a child, 2 children, and a wife, and like this is a very masculine kind of probably response that's probably coded deep within my DNA, right? I don't, right back to the discussion about determinism and everything. But all I have to do is imagine that this hypothetical family is in danger, and all of a sudden, no, I really want to be able to exercise my Second Amendment rights. So that's a problem. It's like, how many of the political, the things that I hold to some degree that I might say out loud and make my stance, place my stake in the ground, how many of those things suddenly change the moment that I become a father? It's very crazy. It's very difficult. And I think, the boomers, you guys have a pretty good argument when you look down and you say, oh, my sweet summer child, you're so naive. Things definitely do change the moment that you are responsible for a life. Absolutely. I can completely agree with that. We gave you lots of cool stuff. Come on. All right, I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? Nirvana's the go-to thing that I can think of, but I don't know. Like, other than that, you guys also passed along a lot of the despair and existentialism that we're currently dealing with right now. So, moderate centrist here. I think that there's probably a lot in the Yang Gang that would say the very same about themselves. And the progressives seem to hate that, but I think it's a very empowering thing. We're types of individuals that can see positives on both sides, negatives on both sides, and we need a lot more of that in our political discussion. All right, so I don't know. Here we are. It's 7:36. I've made it 36 minutes into it. I'm debating whether or not to go through with this video and to give my thoughts into it. You know what? We're just going to do it. We're going to do it because I want to continue to be able to put out some content and everything. We're going to go ahead and take a look here. I'm going to do some tech stuff, make sure that the desktop audio is coming through all right. And it should be. Let's take a look and listen to what Sam Seder of the Majority Report has to say. I think that this is an individual who is, I don't know, possibly associated with the Young Turks. It seems like that kind of branch of the Progressive Party. I swear, it looks like to me that Cenk Uygur has a bit of a crush on Andrew Yang. I think that Cenk is in the Yang gang, but as far as for like the rest of that entire community, I don't know. I really don't know. So let's just take a listen here, and I'm gonna give my thoughts. You're gonna hear my thoughts. Let's see what Sam Cedar has to say.
Things that we have said in the past is a problem with the UBI is that it is often is a political one. I mean, I think we've had multiple people on this program to talk about the UBI.
Quick pause. You guys can hear this, okay? Is that right? I've probably got like a 15-second delay on this, so just gonna twiddle my fingers here and wait for one of the very fantastic Yang gang to make sure that I haven't run into any technical. There we go. All right, fantastic. Let's continue.
I think at one point I had a little bit of a debate about it. In principle, I think it's a good idea to give people money.
Pause. Hold on. I don't think so. And I say that just because of what you say next.
Or you could get around that by giving them goods.
Goods, right, because we can pay rent with goods.
Like healthcare. And then you don't have to give them money.
Hey, you know what? I completely agree. I wonder what candidates also pushing for Medicare for all.
I mean, if you're going to give people $3,000 a year, guess what I would rather you give them? Healthcare.
Hey, why not both?
Much cheaper. I mean, excuse me, much more expensive than $3,000 a year. I think there's some value with baby bonds and whatnot. In particular, the thing I like about baby bonds is it doesn't provide the obvious cudgel to dismantle.
Boy, I don't know about you guys, but I love being able to pay my rent in baby bonds that I have to wait 18 years for.
Things like Social Security, things like medical insurance.
It'd be crazy if you would be able to get a universal basic income and Social Security and medical care all in the same package.
Things like automatic stabilizers, like food stamps and food assistance and nutrition assistance. Things like TANF.
TANF. Oh, right, TANF. The policy, the program that goes through and helps 23 out of 100 people who need temporary assistance.
Things like housing vouchers.
Honestly, housing vouchers, that's a good one. That one's probably the best type of thing to propose. Like, hey, this is a problem. Sure. So that's one, Sam Cedar. I would say every other point, Dividend Report.
And one of the ways that the UBI has been presented in the past, and it's very hard to imagine that it wouldn't be used, even if it was passed and implemented, it wouldn't be used in the future, down the road as some type of leverage point, is to dismantle these things.
Right. It's also like not too crazy to imagine that a federal jobs guarantee, let's say Ivanka Trump got into office in 2025 and decided to use her federal jobs guarantee to build a wall to, finish what her father started. Yeah, it's not too crazy to think that either.
And to actually just, in many ways, it's very much about basically saying, I'm going to let the market decide, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an advantage in the market.
Right, because the market is the most evil thing that humanity's ever come up with.
And here is presidential candidate Andrew Yang giving up the ghost here. Now, I don't even know if Rubin notices it, although he's been reading Milton Friedman, I guess, and it's certainly Milton Friedman's idea to do this. But here it is, Dave Rubin talking to Andrew Yang about UBI.
Just the
why
way
not
this
just
guy's
blow
like
apart?
talking.
So I think the best libertarian argument that I've heard for UBI is that basically, if you want to do UBI, it's got the right idea. Why not just blow apart the social safety net as is? Because we know it's just a boondoggle of middle management nonsense.
Pause
with
it.
all the
Pause it. Hold on. Wait. Before you say that. No, I'm kidding.
Saying the words, it's a boondoggle of management nonsense means nothing.
How?
This is absolutely 100% not true.
Really?
Food stamps, not a boondoggle.
Really? Hold on. Quick Google search. How much is the average food stamp benefit per month? Oh, wait. It looks like it's $133 per month. That comes out to $1.50 per meal for your average food stamp recipient. Now, how much, I wonder, do we pay for the caseworkers involved with deciding whether or not those food stamps should go out to people or not? Something tells me it's a little bit more than $133 per month to keep that administration office running with electricity, air conditioning, and oh yeah, not to mention the living wage that those bureaucrats are living off of. But let's just continue here a little bit. I lost it. Where did it go? Hold on. Where did it? Tech issues. Here it is. Okay, we're back.
You know what does mean something, though? Blow up the social safety net.
Right. That means something. But it's not. I would
because the social safety net is the golden calf.
like to see evidence or data that suggests it's a boondoggle.
That's what's so frustrating about
Well, oh, look at that. I'm ahead of the curve here.
the Yang people is they think they're not being ideological when they say stuff like this.
Right.
Yeah, ideological. You know what? Maybe I am ideological, but I think that my ideas are a little bit better.
of middle management nonsense with all the whacked out incentives that you're talking about. Why not just take all of that money, do we even know how much money is actually put into these things?
Of course.
So how much right now?
600 billion, give or take.
Give or take. All right, so why not take the 600 billion that are on programs that we know are creating as many problems probably as they're fixing, if not more, and then do it that way? Like, do you think, because it almost feels like it's like a little bit of a stopgap, that you'd still have to get to that problem eventually?
Well, that's the beauty of this, the freedom dividend proposal, is that you have this 600 billion or so, and then you're saying, hey, guess what? Like, it's now a new right of citizenship, everyone gets it. And then what's going to happen is you're going to dramatically reduce the enrollment in these programs very, very quickly, because a lot of people will be like, I prefer the cash. And then this new incoming population would just opt for the dividend and then never end up on these welfare programs. So you'd end up shrinking the enrollments over time in the way you described. You just wouldn't do it all at once, because there are a lot of people in very distinct situations. And this is actually much more politically feasible and popular than going and trying to tear these programs up and from the roots up.
Yeah. Are you worried though that the
Pause it. In other words, you say
Wait, before we hear what he has to say, I mean, come on. Everything that he just said there was very reasonable. And when he says this is better than going through and tearing it out from the roots, I agree. The verbiage there is kind of aggressive. And it really does show that Yang's in a room. He understands the audience that he's speaking to. He understands that this is what the right will kind of perk their ears up to and listen with. But that doesn't automatically make this some sort of like horrible kind of thing, right? Like, that's the same trap, right? The right hates the left. Anything leftist is immediately evil, and the left seems to do the same thing against the right. There is no room for center discussion. Listen, if dismantling the social safety net means making a better result for everyone and not just some, right? If what tearing out from the roots actually means is eclipsing and bolstering and making better, then there should be an actual dialogue about that kind of concept. That's all I'm saying.
two things here. One is it gives you the political cover to go in and begin to dismantle the welfare state, and things like
Okay, so right, dismantle the welfare state. We have to establish first and foremost that that's a very terrible thing, and so yeah, there's the argument to be made there. Let's see how they do it.
Things like food stamps, food nutrition,
Disability
which is
assistance.
a automatic stabilizer. It increases as more people fall into poverty if there is a recession. Without that
Hold on, I'll let him finish.
mechanism, people are screwed, but you'll have been able to destroy it.
What? Okay, so in case you weren't following along there, Sam Cedar says at this point that, one of the greatest properties of food stamps is that it's kind of like a counterbalance to recessions, in the way that the more people who get screwed over during a economic recession, the more amount of people will go through. I get very, very into this discussion, excuse me. The more amount of people will then be supplemented by food stamps, and it counteracts. It gives people more ability to then purchase goods and get the economy back up on its feet. Would that not happen with a universal basic income? I'm curious, Sam Cedar, what exactly do you think is the goal of a universal basic income? And this is something that doesn't just take effect during an economic recession. This is here to stay. It's here no matter what. And you don't have to fall on hard times to be able to utilize it. All right, let's continue.
By that point, because the UBI will keep them out of food stamps, and then we can just eventually make the program so small and restrictive. $600 billion. I mean, I love the idea that you can have this conversation. Convinced that it's a boondoggle. Have no idea what it costs. Incidentally, our military budget this year is what? $760 billion?
Oh, great. Now we've got the progressive wing of the party talking about how much we can afford.
$770 billion, I think, going into 2020. But I love how you can just immediately say it's a boondoggle. Of course, it's a boondoggle. How much is it? $600 billion? Is that a lot or is that a little?
Yeah, if you want to find some boondoggles, go to the Pentagon.
Yeah. Is there any more of this? Just a little more.
Are you worried though that because states have different things related to social programs, that we sort of addressed this already, but just that different states will deal with it so differently in terms of how they're giving benefits off UBI, that it just is going to create this weird, we may have a gajillion people moving to one state and leaving another state, or the rest of it, or you just think that that's...
Well, that's one reason why having uniform benefits, because right now there are block grants that go to various states, and the states do different things with it, as you're suggesting. And those are the programs that would be swapped out for UBI. So the more people that opt into UBI, then the smaller those grants would be.
Largely Medicaid.
No. You misunderstand. Yang is for Medicare for all. It is on top of the universal basic income. The last thing that Yang wants to happen is for the universal basic income to subsidize the pharmaceutical industry. So that's just flat out wrong, Sam.
What he's talking about.
Yeah, the first thing he cites on the how are we going to pay for UBI is SSDI. And basically, and I've looked into this a little bit, but my understanding is there's about 8 to 9 million people on that get SSDI payments, and the average is over $1,000, over the $1,000 Yang dollar ones, and that's for like handicapped transportation.
All right. Well, if you're getting over $1,000 with SSDI, stay on it. We're not tearing it apart. We're not uprooting it.
And stuff like that.
This is Social Security disability insurance, which is very, very difficult to qualify for.
Yeah, it is very difficult to qualify for. You know how difficult it is if you were to lose it because you decided to make yourself fit for work and go through and have that lose those abilities. It could take up to 8 months to get back onto that if you were to lose your job. And increasingly, work is precarious. So, that's a very good point, Sam.
And the idea that you would basically take the most vulnerable people in our society.
The most vulnerable people, are we speaking about the 13 million Americans under the poverty line that get no help whatsoever? I muted it.
As a mechanism to erode their support systems is just
as a mechanism to erode their support systems. What does that mean exactly? I don't quite understand, because they can always go back onto those systems if they were helping them to a much greater degree than the universal basic income. So it doesn't quite make sense why you would say that, Sam.
This is, I mean, when we've talked about UBI in the past, that scenario is exactly what is problematic.
And so, just to illustrate this for people, imagine you were getting like paying $1,200 in handicap transportation costs a month, and all of your friends who aren't disabled, they get all their Yang bucks, $1,000 a month, but you don't get the Yang bucks because you need to keep your SSDI payment. Your friends are going to be like, hey, let's go to the beach with our Yang bucks this month. You're not going to be able to do any of that because you're going to be behind them every month, because you have to make the choice. But
oh no, I can't even really believe what I just heard right there. First of all, listen, okay, let's say that you are receiving handicap benefits and your friends are all in the group chat sending their emojis and memes to each other, and they all decide, hey, we've all got the $1,000 more for the month, let's go to the beach. And then they all turn their head and they look at the poor handicapped member of the family and say, oh, I'm sorry, you don't get the Yang bucks and you can't come along with us. Listen, you've got some terribly, I'm gonna prevent myself from cursing at the moment, but you've got some really bad friends if they're gonna leave you just out to dry during that moment. This is what is just completely missed during this discussion, I feel, is the effects in which this overall abundance mindset does have cascading qualities throughout it. Each of these individuals can all plan a trip to the beach, and they'd be able to afford to help out their friend who does need the special assistance that's being provided for them. Listen, I've said it before that I am in favor of UBI Plus, and as soon as you show me a candidate who is offering that platform, I'll start to give Yang a run for his money. But until then, this beats everything, and it beats it to such a margin that I just, like I said, this just blows my mind. Let's continue listening.
Between Yang bucks or these welfare programs, like if the Yang thing went to everybody regardless of any kind of assistance they got, then I think it would be an interesting program. But this torpedoes it.
A left UBI would be done on top of the existing welfare state.
Yes.
Well, then
And
I'm sorry, but why don't we see it? Where's the left UBI? Where is it? Bernie, where are you at? Where are you, huh? Why aren't we having this discussion right now? Why are you just shutting it down? I don't understand.
Have been left cases for that kind of a UBI. Like Peter Fraze wrote a good article in Jacobin called Curious Utopias, sort of explaining how a left UBI could hypothetically be some kind of non-reformist reform that would move us closer to socialism, but that's not what this is.
Right, and that's always...
There it is. There it is, Yang Gang. We've suddenly got down to the, what is it? The chewy center of the Tootsie Pop, if you will. The Tootsie Pop popsicle. No. Lollipop. That's what it is. We've really kind of gotten down and discovered exactly where this dissent is coming from. Whoa, hold on. We're not getting any closer to a socialist government. We're not getting any closer to completely getting rid of private ownership of property and a central type of authority that gets to decide how what is distributed where. And I understand that there are democratic ways of enacting more socialist types of policies and systems within a country, but I'm not, I am a student of history overall, and I understand that there's a degree with which you're just trading one power hierarchy for another, and I personally don't want to be under a power hierarchy that gets to decide whether or not I get to eat based on how fit to work I may be, or how loyal to the overall state that I may be, or what I may say at any given time. I think it needs to be unconditional and universal, and I think that is very important. And if that is your problem with this, then we've got some serious disagreement coming through here.
It's been my fear about the UBI is not so much that you couldn't come up with a good one, is that it's too easy to come up with a bad one. And
too easy to come up with a bad one. This is coming from I don't know how many dozens of studies that have shown that even with like $50 in the equivalency of the US currency in developing countries, this is the thing, even one compared to 0 is an infinite difference. You can't do anything with 0, but you can do something with 1. Obviously, $1, I would not be in support of $1 universal basic income, but you can't just sit there and say that any universal basic income is bad. You would have to go to a pretty severe degree to make a bad UBI. And I think that we could go through and say that about Milton Friedman's proposal. It does damage things to a degree, but it's completely disingenuous to say that that's what Yang is going for.
And in addition to VAT taxes being somewhat regressive, is my understanding.
Never mind.
The idea that you're going to take someone and say, choose, I guess at the beginning of the year, right? Like, oh, it turns out you chose wrong. Sorry, dude.
Guess what that adds to? Administrative overhead.
Right, exactly. Of course.
That might actually be an interesting point. How would the change in systems and policy work? Obviously, there's a lot of details that we should cover concerning the implementation and specific detailing of the universal basic income. It's almost as if I wish that we had something to bounce that conversation off of, almost like maybe another candidate offering more specifics as to how they would go about implementing such a transformative policy.
And then the idea that, like, what happens? Like, how long do you choose? When do you choose? How long is the period of time that you opt in for? And how do you predict when you're on Social Security disability how long you're going to be on for?
Those are great questions. I wish that you haven't already disregarded the complete idea before it got out of the gate.
I mean, this is...
I mean, I get the appeal, right? Like $1,000 a month would change my circumstances substantially, but that's not the limits of my political imagination.
So I think that's part of the problem here is that, again, we're unable to imagine that, like our circumstances might be similar to other circumstances as well. This is part of the problem. This is when they come through and imagine that they know what's best for the poor. The poor have issues far different than their own, and they can't be trusted to make their own decisions. Now, I'll admit there are some special needs cases. There is mental illness, and there is addiction type of problems that might make individuals make poorer decisions if given unconditional cash and not being able to be constrained by currency that's only being able to be used for food. But we can come together and find some solutions to that problem, and that problem is much smaller in scope than the overall issue of the fact that we have a lot of people overall who would benefit significantly from a universal basic income.
Oh, for people that run Patreon podcasts, it'd be great to have that many people with that much money to spend, but
I don't know what he's talking about there. For real, like, no. Listen, come on. Yeah, sure, it would be great if you guys all had a little bit of disposable income and you could join along with my Patreon and buy me a coffee every month or so, but I think that's a non sequitur.
You can't do this and shaft the most vulnerable people like that. And there's no reason to, other than ideological reasons, that you're running some sort of I want to make government smaller campaign.
That's the problem. That right there is what grinds my gears the most. It really chaps my ass. I mean, it burns my biscuit when they come through and they say there is no other reason why you would push forward this type of policy unless you're just trying to screw over people and help the corporate oligarchs. It's so disingenuous.
Campaign, but don't want to be honest about it.
Let's play this clip.
Okay, that was the end of it. All right. Whew. Let's just center ourselves. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. We made it. We made it through, and we're still here. We're still doing okay. We're still kicking. those are my thoughts on the Majority Report with Sam Seder. And as you can see, it really does bother me that this seems to be the angle that they're coming from. And we're going to see a little bit more of it here in 7 days, I think, during the Democratic debates, but I'm not sure. Time will only tell. Yang Gang, I believe that we're just going to wrap up the episode here after this. Thank you so much for helping me secure the bag tonight. Thanks for joining along with the stream. If you have not already subscribed, be sure that you hit the bell button and share this with as many other members of the Yang Gang community as you can. We'll all be better off the more Yang members that we have in the chat. And also, yes, I will be doing a Securing the Respawn gaming stream after this. Feel free to check me out at twitchtv.com/Dividend Report. It may be the Dividend Report. This is going to be a Adult Swim after the hours type of, no strings attached conversation. I have no responsibility for what my co-hosts, what the people who I'm playing with will say. But if you're just, want to hang along and hang out, you're more than welcome to. Let's see. Yeah, so right, 200 subscribers. That still is the case. I'm going to be giving a free copy of The War on Normal People, Andrew Yang's book. I think that just about does it. All right, thank you guys so much. Hare Krishna, I'm signing off.